guys, this is a review over Pythagorean Theorem. So we are having a test on Monday, and so we're spending today reviewing. So I'm going to go through these questions, we're going to talk about some of them, and kind of go over that. So the first one is, on a triangle below, label side A, B, C, and the hypotenuse. So we know that the hypotenuse is our longest side. A or B, you could have switched them and done B over here and A over here. So a couple of things. Side A and B can be switched. Side A and B can be switched. Side C is the longest. Across from the right angle, and it's called the hypotenuse. Okay. Just quick reminders of these make really good true and false questions. They just make really good test questions. All right. Question 2. Solve the missing side. Be sure to show all steps. Okay, so let's start here. I'm going to circle the word side because I have a lot of you who, a lot of kids in class who are telling me that that we can use this to solve for an angle, but that's not true. We can only use it to solve for a side, and it must be a right triangle. Just like on your homework, you're going to have to show all your steps. So I'm going to show my formula. So that's going to be a squared plus b squared plus c squared. So I'm going to label. I have a C, A, and B. Next is the plug in. These right here. So I'm going to do 11 squared plus 6 squared plus c squared. Solve. So 121 plus 36 c squared. Some common mistakes people have been making is I've seen people forget the squared there and just made it 11 plus 6. I've seen some of you do 11 times 2. This is my in-class people, so I'm assuming if my in-class people are missing it, then maybe some of my at home are too. Also, I've seen some students that have mixed up my sides a little bit. We'll look a little more at that on the next one. Okay, so then I'm going to continue solving. 157 c squared. I've seen some of you stop right there and say the answer is 157. But I got to take the square root, and that is not a perfect square. And we want to leave it in square root form. Alright, let's look at number 3. Solve for the missing side. Again, we're going to show all our steps. We're not going to do decimal answers, so you can mark that out. I want the square root answers. Alright, so I'm going to label my sides. So this is across from the right angle. So C and A and B don't matter. I'm going to do my formula. So A squared plus B squared equals C squared. I'm going to do my plug in. Where I plug this in. Now look, my A doesn't have a number with it, so it stays as A. I saw somebody making this mistake. My B is 8. So I'm plugging that to the 8 spot, the B spot. And that's 13. And then I'm going to keep that A squared, 64, and 169. So what I saw some of you do is you went ahead and added 169 plus 64. But I want you to notice, am I adding 164 and 169? No. I'm adding a squared to 64. So I need to get a squared by itself. So I'm going to subtract 64. And I've learned how to solve for variables. Take the square root of it. And square root and I know my in-class kids started working on this review yesterday. So I didn't, sorry. So I know they got a little stuck on this one, so let's read it. Mary's making a quilt for her grandmother. She wants to put a stitch diagonally. So this is diagonal right here. Across the quilt. Below are the measurements of her quilt. 8 by 14. How long does this stitch need to be? So everyone's getting confused. But look, I have a right triangle. I can ignore this. So if you want to put X squared or whatever, that's okay. We don't need that side. Okay, we only need that right triangle. So I'm going to draw my angle, and that's going to be C, A and B, not my angle, my arrow, sorry. My formula. Plug it in. Now you can use a calculator on this test. I recommend, I've seen a lot of people making some silly mistakes by not using a calculator. We'll get 260. And so that side length is square root of 260. Alright, so that's solving for a missing side. So let's look at number 5, which is asking whether it's a right triangle or not. Alright, so I need to label my sides. So I know this longest one has to be C. The other two can just be A and B. So I write my formula. Plug it in. 36 plus 144 equals 225. Add those two together. 180 does not equal 225, so it is not a right triangle. Because remember, Pythagorean theorem. Pythagorean theorem is only used on right triangles, so we can also use Pythagorean theorem to prove if it's a right triangle. Alright, so let's look at the other side. Is a triangle with the sides below a right triangle? So again, I'm going to have C, A, and B, and I'm going to pull out my calculator. To work this out. So we have A squared plus B squared equals C squared. 10 squared plus 24 squared equals 26 squared. So 10 squared is 100. 24, which was on y'all's homework, but I had a lot of people get a whole different answer. And then 26 squared. My calculator on my phone, the squared buttons when I turn it sideways, and I didn't want to turn it sideways, so you can always just do 24 times 24. They equal each other, so yes, this is a right triangle. Alright, so let's look at the next one. Find the distance between 2 points. Alright, so the steps. We have talked about, this is in your journal, it will be on your test. So let's take a breather real quick and let's go back over those steps. Okay, let me get something to write on. Alright, so our steps are, our first step is to connect the points and label it C. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to connect these 2 points and label it C. And then our second step is to draw, rise and run, count, I'm going to, and then label it as A and B. I'm going to draw my rise and run. Label it A and B. Count the squares. 1, 2, 3, 4. Sorry, this is a really small shape. 1, 2, so 4. Our third step is to use Pythagorean theorem to solve for C. So, A squared plus B squared equals C squared. My A is 4. My B is 4. So 16 plus 16. 32. Take my square root. That side length is the square root of 32. Alright. Notice I have my formula. I drew my triangle, I have my formula, I have my plug-in, I have my solve, I have my answer. Look at number 8. This time it didn't give us 2 points drawn for us, so we're going to have to draw these. So negative 2, 4, and 5, 3. So our first step is to connect the points. I'll zoom in, maybe it'll be, now that we don't necessarily need to see those directions maybe. Connect the points. Ooh, it's going to be a really small triangle. Label it C. Draw my rise and run. Ooh, that's a 1, and that's going to be my A. That's a B, and it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Use Pythagorean theorem. And I get square root of 50. Alright, let's look at a couple of word problem examples. Kimberly leaves her house and goes for a run. She runs 7 miles north. So how can I do 7 miles? So let's say she's starting right here, and north is going up. So she went 7 miles north. And 3 miles east. So east is this way, so this is where she was. Well, she ran 7 miles north, and then she went 3 miles east. It's a little bit shorter. Okay. What's the shortest distance back to her house? So this was her house. And she ran 3 miles north, 7 miles north, 3 miles east. And we want to know what's the shortest distance right here. That's going to be shortest. There's no turns or bends. So this made a right angle. So that's my C, A, and B. A squared plus B squared equals C squared. So 7 squared plus 3 squared, C squared. 49 plus 9, 58. Square root of 58 is that distance. Alright, let's look at another word problem. James needs to get to the roof of his house. The house is 25 feet tall. So this right here is 25. He needs to place the ladder 10 feet away. So here's where the bottom of the ladder is, and it's 10 feet away from that. How tall does the ladder need to be? Well, if I look, it created a right triangle. So this is my C, and that's my A and B. They already had it labeled for us. So A squared plus B squared equals C squared. So A is 25 squared plus 10 squared. 25 squared, I believe is 525, but I'm going to double check. No, 625. 625 plus 100. So 725 square root of 725. Alright, so for Monday's test, be sure that you can solve for any of the missing sides. Be sure you can, there is maybe 1 or 2 word problems just to kind of get you thinking. There is a couple of these. There are some that even have where the points aren't drawn for you, so be sure you know how to draw your points. All of them require all of the steps. You do have a couple of, is this a right triangle or not? Sorry, my paper's upside down. And the in-class people will have a label one. I haven't really decided how I'm going to ask you all that question. So just be sure that you're prepared. If you have questions, please start messaging me, emailing me, asking those questions, okay? I want to help you as much as I can. Kind of hard to do there when I don't know what you need help on, all right? Y'all have a blessed day and a good weekend.